President Trump's Friday deadline for Russia to reach a ceasefire with Ukraine is looking increasingly unlikely. Reuters is reporting that Russian President Vladimir Putin still wants to capture 4 regions of Ukraine and is undeterred by potential sanctions from the U.S. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says he spoke with Trump on the phone this morning, and he called it a productive conversation, thanking him for efforts to end the war. CBS News national security contributor Samantha Vinograd is in Washington. Sam, very good to see you here. U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff may be heading to Russia this week to push for a ceasefire. Does he have any real leverage?
It doesn't look that way. What we have seen instead is President Trump consistently move the goalpost on when his deadline is for Russia to reach a ceasefire with Ukraine. However, while President Trump does keep moving those goalposts, he is imposing, or says he is imposing, additional pressure on Russia in the form of additional tariffs on India, which has become a major importer of Russian oil since the war in Ukraine started. So President Trump is pursuing 2 tracks, it appears, a diplomatic one via Steve Witkoff and a pressure campaign via additional tariffs on India in light of its purchases of Russian oil.
And Sam, all this is happening as Russia is indicating it could start using intermediate range missiles. What exactly does that mean, and how does that change the conflict?
Well, Russia has already used intermediate-range missiles, in fact, in Ukraine. Back in 1987, the United States and Russia signed a treaty known as the INF, the Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, that limited the use of intermediate-range missiles by either country. That was a significant treaty. However, for years, including when I was in the Obama White House, the U.S. has had concerns that Russia was violating the restrictions on intermediate-range missiles in that treaty. And President Trump actually withdrew from that treaty in 2019. Russia recently said that it no longer felt like it had to abide by the contours of that treaty. But again, Nancy, that's somewhat performative because Russia has been violating that treaty for years.
Sam, also a Ukrainian official says it found Indian-made components in a Russian drone. What do we know about that? And what is the relationship like today between India and Russia?
Well, Russia and India have historically had very close economic ties. India's relationship with Russia has frankly improved over the last several years. The Group of 7 countries has been very focused on reducing Russian energy revenues and imposed a price cap on Russian oil exports and other measures. In light of all that, India actually increased its imports of Russian oil because it could get Russian oil at a cheaper rate because global demand went down. So India has significantly increased its imports of Russian oil since the war in Ukraine began and is a very strong commercial partner with Russia more broadly. The fact that Indian products have ended up in Russian drones is unsurprising, and it is likely that President Trump will try to target Indian exports to Russia to try to curb Russia's expertise on the battlefield in Ukraine.
All right, Sam Vinograd, thank you very much. We always appreciate your insight.